Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Just Two Dads with my partner, my co-host, Shawn Francis. I am Brian Altunian. Sorry, it was a back conversation. And today we're going to be talking about self-determination in the area of families with special needs and self-determination program from a phenomenal company. We're newly acquainted with these folks and love the work that they're doing, and can't wait to share who they are and what they're all about with our audience. So stay tuned. Episode of Just Two Dads. See, I told you it's going to be like a conversation. Hello, everybody. I'm Brian Altunian along with Shawn Francis, and we are we're in season 4. I'm just going to start doing that, Shawn, from the beginning. We're in season 4 of Just Two Dads. We started this 4 years ago, and we have over 180 episodes. This was a conversation that we started just as just two dads of children with special needs issues and those things that we encountered. And we were having regular conversations. We thought, we kept meeting people who served our community, and we thought this would be something that we should share, and started this podcast very casually and happily. We're 4 years into it, and we continue to newly meet folks who are serving the community, and we are so pleased, honored, and blessed for our guests today, and just all of the folks that we meet, and can't wait to share this with you all. So before we get into it, I just want to say, if you're catching us live on Facebook, please leave us a comment. If you're seeing us after the fact, you'll catch this episode on our video, on our YouTube channel, but also on our own website at justtwodadspodcast.com. If you want to leave us a message, first of all, hit subscribe and like and share the episode if you think I think today's episode is going to be really great and something that you're going to want to share with families that that are dealing with some family member that has some special needs issue and is trying to find a way to financially afford to, add additional services. So you'll get more of that kind of detail. There's our Gmail address. We are justtwodads@gmail.com. So if you've got anything that you want to share with us, please feel free to write to us. If you're catching us on podcast outlets like Apple and Spotify and down in the U.S. Virgin Islands on WSTX AM radio, thanks for making us part of your listening day. We hope that we add value. We try to add value every episode. And so we're grateful to all of you for sharing what we do. We know that we make a difference because we get comments from folks like you that tell us, you saw an episode and it had an impact. Shawn's going to share a story today about that impact, hopefully, Shawn. Thank our friends over at Billy Footwear, the founder of Billy Price, good friend of the show, and Billy's story itself is so amazing. Go to billyfootwear.com. He makes adaptive footwear for people of all ages and anybody who's ever struggled putting their shoes on, even those without any sort of disability. Just, I'm getting older. Sometimes I think to myself, I should look into Billy Footwear myself. Go to billyfootwear.com, and you can click on a link we're going to put in the show notes. You get a 10% discount as well. We love the folks.
Actually, it's 15%.
15%.
New agreement. Yes.
New
and the thing that's cool about that is it's 15% off your final purchase, regardless of any price that they have. So if they have a sale, and it's 20, 30, 40, 50% off, the 15 is on top of that, and they're a worthy cause, a great organization.
Yeah, love it.
Wow.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Mr. Shawn Francis.
That's a very deep inside joke that's only minutes old. And I'm going to answer the question that you're going to ask, which is, how am I doing? I'm doing great and blessed to be here. Thankful for the platform. And yes, I will share a little later on the show about impact and how you can affect other people, story related to our men's group known as The Den. But for today's episode, we are visited by two people from an amazing organization called PPL First. And as Brian said, we are new to that organization in terms of our acquaintance with them, and two amazing people from PPL First. Please welcome to Just Two Dads, Maria Perrin and Jessica Mercado.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here.
Hello.
And Shawn, I was before you got on. I was the company name's actually PPL, but it is People First. It's really what it stands for is People First. So, just want people, if they're typing in People First, they'll see PPL as the name of the company.
That'll make it easier to find. Okay,
yeah,
great.
Right.
Well, thank you for both being here. We met at an event recently, both serving the community, and so everything about who we are is based on our experience, where we're from, physically, literally, geographically, emotionally, spiritually, and every superhero has an origin story from which their powers come. And one of the first qualifications for being a hero, like we tell our guests, is that you probably don't see yourself as one, and I can tell by the uncomfortable look on your faces. So, therefore, you've just qualified for a hero. So tell us each about where you come from, your background, what got you to where you are today, serving the community.
Go ahead, Maria.
Okay, I could start. Hi, everybody. I'm Maria. I came to service of the community two ways, actually, personally and professionally. When my son was 20 months old, he was diagnosed as autistic. And at that time, 20 years ago, there wasn't a lot of services available. And I was not living in California. I was living in another state that did not fund services. They did not have programs for autistic children. I was told by my health insurance company that he was born with the condition. I'm using their words, so they don't pay for any therapies.
It was considered pre-existing. Wow.
And so this is before the Affordable Care Act. This is before the mental health parity laws. This is, all of these things that we now are grateful to have because we're starting to see some support where needed. So, my husband and I were a young couple. This was our first child. So we immediately went into the mode of what do we need to do for our child? I was grateful that we both, there's always some shock and grief when you hear, oh my goodness, is this going to be bad for my child? You don't know.
Right.
That world. Right. But we quickly kind of gathered ourselves together and what does he need? What support does he need? What therapy does he need? What medical treatments does he need? What diets does he need to go on? And, we worked hard to get him into a multifaceted program that helped him, develop his speech, develop his muscle tone, develop his ability to learn and productively and have functions independently. And but at the time, I started thinking about we're not the only ones who are living through this. And, here we are, both my husband and I, we were blessed to be able to get college educations and, we're professionals, but I'm thinking about, think about all the people who don't have resources here. And even us, at the time we were much younger, I just say 20 years ago, and to pay for all of these therapies out of pocket was just difficult, and especially that one of us had to step back from their career to manage everything, right? To manage.
What state were you in, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't want to say, because
I was just going to say, okay, if you don't want to, that's okay.
Yeah.
Made some progress from then, but that leads me to the professional aspect. During this time, I was called from a company in California and said, we want you to come work for us. And my husband and I had met in California. Brian and I were just discussing, we're both Bruins, UCLA alums, right? So, we thought to ourselves, this is a great opportunity to go to a state that is progressive on the topic, and we can, get some good help for our son. So professionally, I made the move. My husband stepped back from his career to just manage all the transition and get my son set up for all his supports. And we ended up getting a lot of support from the regional centers, which were very helpful. Interestingly enough, professionally, that job I took had me end up working in healthcare, and in particularly for Medicaid populations.
Oh my gosh.
So it was like fate for me, because I started working for Medicaid populations, people who had real needs. They had physical, medical needs, behavioral health needs. They had needs for supports in terms of meals and transportation and such. And I found the work so incredibly rewarding that I ended up making it my career. And ever since then, 20 years ago, all of my work has been focused on serving programs that help disabled, special needs populations, Medicaid population, Medicare populations, and those who are vulnerable populations that really need these programs to have a rich life. So it was just interesting how my personal and professional life converged. And that's how I came to eventually work at PPL.
That's a dream.
It's a dream, right?
It's a dream when your personal
live your mission, right? Live your personal passion and be able to not only help your family, but be able to help so many others in a way that's supported and systematic. So it's been great.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Awesome.
That's fantastic.
We'll get into more detail about PPL, but let's hear Jessica's story. I know that's what Shawn was going to say, but Jessica's story, and then we'll go back to PPL and then the program within PPL that Jessica's focused on.
Sure.
Jessica.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us again and sharing the story. With me, it was definitely more out of passion, out of care, catering to my family members who have children with disabilities. I have cousins with disabilities. So I was born in Mexico City. We came to the United States when I was 9 years old, and I grew up in Stockton, California. So that city taught me a lot, very diverse city. I grew up in the low income. So yes, I definitely saw a variety of things, lower resources. So that shaped me, being more resourceful, right? Being able to ask questions. If there wasn't something readily available, then my mom taught me at a young age. She pretty much lost everything, the support system she had in Mexico. She's the baby out of 12. So moving to California, not having a support system, not knowing the language, really, it was just shocking for everybody in the family. But seeing my mom's determination as to finding ways and resources, that also helped me understand, okay, there's a way. So I quickly adapted. I tried my best. And yeah, when I say it was really, it's a skill set that I had just at a young age, going for resources. And like, for example, going in elementary, there was a teacher who told my mom about an academy that was specifically just for children, immigrants, that they didn't know any English, and they put me up to speed at the grade level. So having these resources, knowing that, okay, there's ways, there are options, quickly translated into skills that I don't know, I quickly said, oh, I need this, resourceful, right? So when it came to, for example, to graduating, going to college, there was also a sense of uncertainty because, again, known having the social or economic status to be able to afford college, right? So now California was charging us an international rate. So thankfully, the California Dream Act came in, so I was able to go to college. I'm bringing all these things in because it ties into why I tell people about the program, right? There are always resources readily available, but we don't know the information. So at a young age, I adapted to, okay, looking for information, sharing the information, and I even helped classmates. We all were happy that, oh, we don't have to go back to our own native country. We can actually afford to stay here and continue college. Also, there was another program that opened up. It was called the DACA, the Deferred Action for Children, which that holds us from being deported, and it actually gives us authorization to work. So those two things shaped my life because I was able to go to college, help older people with the process, and well, I couldn't afford a lawyer, but I was able to get training through the school system to do my own sort of process, right? And I didn't have to pay anyone. So
yeah,
I was able to do that. Now, my very own first professional career was out of college at a home care agency where I was introduced to the regional centers and the services they provided. So that really opened more passion. It ignited a lot of, okay, this is where I fit. This is where I go to church. There was a lot of church members that had children with disabilities, but they didn't know information. So introducing this to the community, introducing it to everybody was definitely something that I always find passionate about. And now with this program, it's even better to offer families different options for services.
So Jessica, I have to tell you, and we always ask this question at the very beginning, and we always preface it with the idea, of calling folks, our guests, superheroes. So we know Superman and Wonder Woman and all the variety of folks that wear capes, but you wear a cape of advocacy and self-advocacy. And I think that should be a superhero, right? I don't know what they call it, Ms. Advocacy, but I mean, that sounds like what you've done, like understanding. And I think that that's one of the key areas for our community is learning how to be advocates for your family and teaching those that are affected how to be a self-advocate. And we need self-advocacy throughout our lives, neurotypical or neurodivergent, right? And so what you've just described, what you grew up with is you've gone to the gym, you've worked out the muscle of self-advocacy, and now you're getting to show other folks how to do that. And both of you, God bless you, that is awesome.
What's really interesting about all of this is Brian may have mentioned I'm a 2024 fellow with Caring Across Generations, and part of the fellowship, one of the things I've discovered recently on my own is that, and Brian and I talked about this. Brian, out of love for me, said, "I don't know if you want to share but that kind of goes. This is who we are." And this was the fact that I didn't realize I was a caregiver. And what I realized is that when you're a parent, when your child comes into the world, first of all, you have this idea as to what you want them to be, and it's a very loving yet selfish thing. You want to introduce them to your favorite sports teams, your favorite hobbies, and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, you'd like for them to do their own thing. Then when a diagnosis comes, it's like, that's changed. This isn't the child you were planning to have. And your parent meter goes up. Your uniform fits twice as tight. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm going to just jump in and do everything I can for this child. And you don't realize what it means to advocate for them, self-advocacy, be a caregiver. You don't realize that. Sometimes we're so busy doing that we don't realize what it is that we actually are. And I brought up the fellowship because we have a monthly session, and it was I discovered last night that there are more people, higher numbers, which is another conversation for another time, a higher number of people than you would imagine that don't categorize themselves as caregivers. Not because they're against the word or have a negative association with it, but they're so busy doing it that they don't even know that that's what it is. And I thought I was strange for that. So that's the one thing. Two, you have a high level of self-awareness. That's why we can never tire of our efforts to raise our consciousness, because at such a young age, you're aware of what it is that you're doing. So that's the first thing about you, Jessica. And then Maria, in your case, to have resources that most don't have, and then have the presence of mind and the empathy to wonder about those that don't have it, and then feel that it's wrong. those are things that are commendable. And because you're so busy just doing what you do, I'm sure you never stop to think, oh, I'm a hero because of that. That's a good thing. But I'm here to tell you that it is. Every now and then it's good to stop and just sit back and pay attention to who we are and what we do.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I think, I think from when we first, shortly after we first, knew we were going on this journey with my family, it became, almost a mandate for us that we have to help families. Like we were struggling, like we were, and that was the whole point. Like we were struggling to do this, and so we said we have to get out there and advocate and help people, and whatever we know, we have to share with them. Exactly. It just became, it wasn't even a choice. It was like knew you knew that like all of us as a community had to lift each other up and find solutions that would work for the community as a whole. Because if one family falls down, we all fall down.
Exactly. And if you found success with something, if you have a problem or a challenge and you find a solution, you're happy for it. But why on earth would you ever keep it to yourself?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And you're preaching to the choir, because we feel the same way. We turned this into something, a little bit more formal, where we could have conversations like this ongoingly, because we were impacted by it. And like I said in the very beginning, we're constantly amazed that we encounter people and programs and services and offerings that we never heard of. And like you, Maria, my daughter was diagnosed 27 years ago, and I am in California, and we didn't know that resources were available. And we have the internet now, and people can access the stuff. This is what the internet is to me, typing. But even then, it's amazing to us to always to continue to find things that we didn't know was available. So thank you for that. So if we're good with that, and I was going to ask you one quick question, personal, and you can answer or not. You have other children besides your firstborn?
I do. I have a daughter, and she's doing great. She came along, but my daughter was adopted, and actually from China. So we have an interesting family, and it's a great family, and she's doing great as well, along with my son. Both are. My daughter Jade is at school at American University.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and Luca, my son, graduated from Savannah College of Art and Design this year in June.
I love it.
Yeah. There's a lot of hope out there. There's a lot of programs. We'll talk about some. Jessica and I will talk about some.
Yeah.
And we're happy to share.
Love that. Let's get into that. Shawn, unless you had another question, are we good?
No.
Jump in?
Yeah, we're good. Yeah. Jump right in.
Let's talk about PPL, and then we'll have Jessica talk a little about the self-determination program. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
there you go. That wasn't a question.
I'll give you a little background on PPL. So PPL was formed 25 years ago, and the company was working with the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. You may have heard of it. It's an organization that does a lot of healthcare research, and they were doing research on what's called a self-direction or self-determination program. And the pilot program was, if you can wrap around services and supports for families beyond just saying enroll in this program, but going above and beyond with helping walk them through the process, giving them almost case management and care management under these home care programs, what would be the outcome? And so we did the program, this pilot with Robert Wood Johnson. It was very successful. And it was a model that states started adapting, which said, we're going to offer these self-determination programs where people can get services in the home, personal care services and other care services. It gives them choice. It gives them the opportunity to stay in the home instead of going into institutional care if they choose not to. It helps them choose their own caregivers. There's wraparound services. And these other supports that were part of the pilot would be incorporated in. So for 25 years, we have been offering services, getting people enrolled in these self-determination programs, helping them to train their caregivers, right? Giving them information about how, what your caregiver needs to do to enroll in the program and get paid for the program. Oftentimes the caregivers are family members.
Sure.
So remember about, the problems we said with financials, so all of a sudden the parents or other family members have to step back from their job.
Yeah.
Well, the self-determination program enables them to be a paid caregiver or other family members, family friends, church members, et cetera, in their community. So we help explain the program to people. We help them get enrolled in the program, let them know how to qualify, how their caregivers can get qualified. Then we help them with the administration of the program. So things like, what paperwork do you need to fill out, or does your caregiver need to fill out? We make sure their payroll is administered so the caregivers can get paid. We make sure we file any necessary taxes or reports, anything that the programs need from a state or federal standpoint. And so that's what we do. And today PPL does this type of work for 50 different programs across 21 states. And one of the programs is in California, the self-determination program. And here's the website for that.
And I was going to ask you, every state is different, I'm assuming, right?
Every state sets up their program differently. So they'll have differences in terms of who qualifies, how much support they get, how the caregivers need to qualify. But the principles are the same. The principles are enabling people to stay in their homes and community, enabling people to have choice of their caregivers, enable people to, thrive, basically, and wrap around supports for them at home. And so, besides personal caregiving, some of our programs offer things like transportation support or goods services, like maybe someone needs an iPad to do a program. So there's all sorts of supports. Every program is different. I'm going to hand the mic over to Jessica in a minute because she's going to talk about the California self-determination program specifically. So
Okay.
Jessica.
Thank you, Maria. I know that you have the website, so if you can please pull it up. And I think the process of to enroll is there as well in our website. The little postcard that really gives the family. Every time we go to events, we take that postcard because it gives instructions to the families as to the step by step, right? As we mentioned, many families don't even know that they are regional centers. I just spoke with a couple of families. Yeah, we went to events this weekend, and some families were there because they were invited by other family. So they are completely new to the world of the regional center. Regional center was a new word for them. So having them start there, like what the regional center is, how they can go online and look for the specific regional center within their catchment area, contacting them for an intake or the process on how to enroll for services, because that is the key. Once the family or the participant is already enrolled in a regional center, then they will be eligible to ask or request for their participation into this program, the self-determination program. So feel free to stop me if you guys have any questions.
Yeah,
no, I was just gonna comment and just say, my son turned 18 in May. We've gone through the conservatorship, and between that, the estate plan that we're working on and everything, and just his adjustment having graduated high school and the way it's affecting him emotionally and his from a behavioral standpoint as well. It's like a new diagnosis. And as caring as we try to be, we're always focused on the shoes that we're wearing versus the curiosity about other people's shoes. And based on the show and everything that we do, I'm more aware than the average person. And yet even I have forgotten what all those things are like when we're looking at, what the website that we just had on the screen with regard to the regional center and everything, thinking back to what it means when there's first a curiosity, when you observe an oddity or missed milestone, then a diagnosis. And you have to go back to that thought again. What is it like for people that are new to a diagnosis and again don't know about a regional center? So we always have to remember that we deal with what we're dealing with, but at the same time remain curious about what other people are going through. And that was what was going through my head as you were talking about that, and the fact that there's people that don't know. And it goes back to what we said earlier, which is I've gone through this. I've got, not only do I have an answer, but it's like second nature to me. Don't take it or someone else for granted that might not be familiar with it.
Yeah. I'm sorry if I look distracted. I was literally just forwarding your link to a friend of mine who I had lunch with yesterday, who was telling me about his son, who's 4, who was recently diagnosed on the autism spectrum, and again accessing resources and things that they qualify for, and all of that stuff. And so I'm like, oh, you need to look at self-determination. So that's amazing. So keep going,
Yes.
Jessica. This is really
for
fast.
sure. That would be awesome once they are into the regional center. That is huge, right? That's like the first step of conquering into the program, because now you're in their system.
Yeah.
So what's next?
And in fact, just I'll comment on that. What he was telling me was it's a long process to get through the regional center. It shouldn't be that long, but he's like, we filled it out and we got interviewed, and then we're still waiting. So they're still in the process. I mean, so, to a parent who has a recent diagnosis, that every minute that goes by, every hour that goes by, it feels like it's a year, like it's, so to have to go through that process. And again, so to your point, like
Absolutely.
getting cumbersome.
Yes. And that is where I love to work in this company specifically, right? Because we nurture those scholars. We don't shush them off, because I've been experienced where family people, they're just curious, they don't know, and if you're not ready, they send you back. But how are you going to be ready if you don't know the process, if you don't know the information, if everything's new to you? So whenever people call us, wherever you're new, we pretty much touch base as to where are they in the process, whether they're very, very new to the regional center, or if they're already in the regional center, then we touch base a little more. Okay, are you receiving services? If someone is already receiving services, then they can definitely ask their service coordinator for information to enroll into the self-determination program. So let's talk a little more about what this program does. As Maria mentioned, this program is pretty new to California. And what it does, it gives the participant the title, the little hat of being an employer. And that hat, the little hat, comes with more freedom of choice, right? They decide, okay, like for example, an adult participant in this program can have their parents work for them, and they can also decide how much they want to pay their parents. Okay, a minor, if you have a kid who's a minor, then you also get to decide as a parent if you want grandpa, if you want another family member to be the employee. So you do have that comfortability also to pick and choose, and also you choose the pay rate. Okay, so when you go through this process with the regional center, the first step they're gonna have you do is go through an orientation. This orientation at the regional center gives you an overview of what the program can do for you. After you attend the orientation, they evaluate how much funds were, the expenditures of the previous years for the services with the participant.
Okay.
Based on that, they give you a budget. And with that budget now, you get to pretty much pick and choose services within the IPP of the participant that can help and create and target any goals within that document. For example, some people say, well, I don't want my respite to go away. I want my respite to stay. And you can completely keep the services that you're currently receiving, but you can add more to it. For example, I had a family member who's interested in going through the process. As we're speaking right now, the whole process to even get enrolled in the center takes time. So I told my auntie, right now it's gonna take time. I'm honest because it takes time for everything with California, honestly.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let's take this time to plan, right? Let's not waste this time. Let's have them wait for you, but let's you and I work it out. Let's plan out what could be a good future for my cousin, right? So, in her IPP, she had respite. My auntie is looking to continue with the respite, but not through the agency. She wants to hire directly the person, and she can with this program. So, I gave her an example. Say that they give you $50,000 for my cousin. So you can keep 20,000 for respite, and from those 20,000, you can see how many hours and how much you want to pay your respite caregiver. But the rest, take a look at your IPP. What other services can you get? My cousin needed devices for communication. So I told my auntie, you can put an iPad for communication if that's what she needs. More socialization, you can put swimming therapy. So really, it's a variety of services that
Amazing.
the family has now access within this program that they can pretty much, and then this program has options too. I know it's a little bit about a lot of information, so we do consultation meetings with each family when they call us so that we can go case per case as to how this can work for them, because within this program there's different models where they can pick and choose from. Some people don't like the responsibility of being an employer or hiring. They rather just have an agency and have other services. So there are different models and options they have within this program, for sure.
Amazing.
I might want to just add, because several of us have, adult children and who may qualify for the program. Adult children can have an authorized representative. So the parent or someone else can be the representative to make some of these choices if need be, as well. So that's important to note. And there will be guidelines on, what types of services are most appropriate, what types of payment rates are most appropriate. And so this is, while there are a lot of choices, there's also a lot of guidance too, to make sure that, families understand the options that are available to them, and then some guidance on what may be best for their situation.
And Maria, do families pay for your support and your guidance, or not? No, there's no fee for anybody to sign up.
Which is the reason why they go through the regional center, I take it?
Yeah, we are paid typically by the program. So, it will be the state that is paying us to help administer the program. So the families don't pay us.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah, and in different states, it works. It's either administered directly through the state or in California through the regional centers. And in some states, I know you have a broad listening base. In some states, it's administered through a managed care plan, such as a Medicaid health plan that they might be on. So different states have different models. And I also just, if I can, because I know that you have listeners outside of California, if you go to our website, pplfirst.com, there's all of the states that we work in. So if you happen to be listening and want information about another state, you can get a lot of information about other state programs on that website. And if beyond our website, I just want to make sure that your listeners in other states know that these programs can be called, in California, self-determination. They are often called self-direction program or consumer direction. So if they're in, say, New York, they might say New York Consumer Direction Program. If they are in Arkansas, they might say Arkansas Self-Direction Program. So
right.
just a few tips for those of us in other states so that they can find the program that is going to support them.
And they'll find that on your website, PPL
Yeah,
First.com.
they'll find for most states on our program, but even if they're in another state and they don't happen to see it, they want more information, they can just on their state, say their state and either self-determination, self-direction, or consumer direction. Those are the common terms. And then you'll see the state's page for the program.
Gotcha.
And Maria, forgive me if you've answered this already. I think you might have just answered. I'm not sure. But in another state that does not have a regional center, because since your time, like you mentioned 20 years ago, which for all intents and purposes was last week, because time goes by so fast. You mentioned that state has evolved and things have gotten better, and perspective is interesting. I know some people that are here in California have never lived anywhere else are only focused on the shortcomings here as well. But listening and is in a
Shawn, re-ask the question because you froze there for a second.
Okay. For the listener who is in a state that is not as evolved and does not have a regional center, how does that work with regard to accessing the service and not having a regional center that fills that gap and pays for it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So most of the self-direction, self-determination programs are paid for through Medicaid waivers. So they would start with the Medicaid agency or if they're on Medicaid managed care, their Medicaid managed care plans. Those are typically the common ways that people enroll, first get qualified and then get information about the self-direction. There's also departments of developmental disabilities that also fund these programs. So it's usually through Medicaid or a developmental disabilities department in the state.
So while it may vary from state to state, anyone who's listening that knows nothing about a service, knows nothing about a regional center or anything like that, it's not a matter of if you could qualify for the funds that would take care of this. It's just a matter of how.
Yeah. So, again, I don't know if you're putting out a general information, but we'd be happy to answer specific questions from your audience members. But like I said, start with our website, pplfirst.com, because you're likely to find your state's information there. And if not, our advice is to just you can start with your Medicaid program in your state. They will all know about self-direction and self-determination, or the departments of developmental disabilities if that's something that applies.
Great. And they can always reach us at, again, we are just two dads. That's TWO. We are just two dads at gmail.com. It's on the screen as well, in case they don't find the answers at the site.
Yeah. This is really amazing. And, as I said, when and again, a new conversation for us, one that we've just started over the last few weeks. And every time I talk to anybody in your organization, I'm blown away by the commitment that you all have to serving this community and families here in California and in other states as well.
Abroad.
So,
yeah,
really, hats off to you. What an amazing thing. Absolutely incredible. So thank you.
I think people come to work for PPL and organizations like ours because they have a personal connection. Like it's very rare to see people who, go into this, they're not going into it for the wrong reason.
A job. Right. Just a job. Yeah.
Not, like, you have to have the passion for it. And most of the people that Jessica and I work with, this is their life's work. This is their life.
Yes.
Like this is their legacy to help as many people as possible.
And it's obvious because it comes out in all conversations. Every conversation I've had, it comes out.
What blows me away is between the show and the other things I've talked about, fellowship and all those kind of things. I'm quote unquote in the know, right? So to speak, supposed to be Mr. Resource Advocate, blah, 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 whatever. And at least once a week, and that's on the low end, whether it's an organization, an individual, a service. I tell my wife all the time, like, oh my God, I didn't know about. Did you know about that? There's things that she brings to my attention that I don't know about. And it's a great problem to have that people don't know, that's just sitting right under your noses. And there can never be too many entities that are out there that are building a bridge between the special needs community and access to services, whether it's financial literacy and services that we provide as well, or therapies or anything like that. There can never be a shortage of it. Never.
Yeah. And the challenge for us is like, we can never stop doing this podcast because every week we encounter somebody new that we've never heard of and we think everybody should get access to and, should understand.
Yes.
Really amazing. And Jessica, now I'm saying this is going to sound terrible, but on camera, you appear to be very young. So married, children yet? Not yet?
I am married and no kids. But just like Maria, we're thinking about adoption and we're also thinking about fostering. So I told my husband it's been in my mind since little. Just I was able to have such a role models growing up in church. So I don't know, bringing somebody in and helping, just giving that person that one shot at life. If it could be me, then why not? But that's my goal.
Angels walking among us. That's what I always say, right? People,
it's interesting how you think about like after I had my son, he's such a blessing. He's worked so hard and done so well. Like what Jessica was just saying, like it was my thought, like who's out there that we should be helping? Like who's out? Like that's why my husband and I chose to adopt. Like who's out there?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting how like an experience like this just affects every life choice from that moment on,
Yeah. And my wife and I, our family is completely blended and consists of what people would call stepchildren, our biological children, and adoptive children as well. And so the process, it is rewarding. And like anything else, you learn and discover amazing things. People are the most valuable things on the planet. The only problem with that is that sometimes we forget it.
Yeah. We do this, and a lot of times Shawn and I are moved, by the stories, and sometimes and Shawn and we're evolved men enough to know we cry at everything, but we so often get moved by the backstory and challenges and adversity that some folks face, and then they overcome. This conversation is moving on a completely different level because it's powerful to see people committed to impacting the world, and we always talk about, this book over my shoulder. I can never know which way to point. This book over my shoulder about, the power of one more, making a difference in somebody's life in some way. And the fact that both of you and everybody in your organization seems to be driven by, as you said, Maria, driven by, life choices that they make to make a difference to who else is out there. I think that is so brilliant. And again, I personally am moved by the work that you do. It's not just a service you provide. It's not just a service you provide. You provide so much more, and it's inspirational. So glad that we have had a chance to have this conversation with you today. It's really.
May we return the compliment. What you all are doing with this podcast, spreading the word. I mean, this is exactly, you're the heroes. So I hope you also recognize that in yourselves as well. This is fantastic.
Well, thank you. I want to touch on that, which is, I understand why people are like, again, it's almost like not seeing yourself as a caregiver. You're just busy doing what you do. And before we pivot to the question, which is usually asked at this point in the show, I want to encourage everyone to, we'll put the link up a little before we go off for our men's group, which is known as The Den. We're part of a men's group in our former financial firm, and, you know, got something out of that. And the thought was, if men, generally speaking, don't have a comfortable place to just express themselves, if they are a caregiver, they're probably twice as hungry for a place to just express themselves. And Brian came up with the name, which is The Den. The Den is a comfortable place in your home where you relax. And so one of the men that are in that group was also a guest on our show. When his child was diagnosed with autism, and shortly after that, he and his son became homeless. By the time we connected, he had gotten on his feet. They had a place and everything. And so in our most recent Zoom call for our group, he told us that he was looking for a new place because things are doing so much better that now they're able to get into an even bigger place. And he said that every place that he applied for, they told him, unfortunately, the answer was either no, or they had to charge him an exorbitant amount for a security deposit because he had one eviction on his history from when they became homeless. And one place that he finally settled on, the guy sent him an email telling him how much he was going to have to charge him as a result. Good news, you got the place. Bad news, I got to charge you X number of dollars. The guy followed up with a phone call and said to him, and it's funny because we're on the Zoom call. At the end of the call, he says, "Oh, wait, I got to tell you this. You would appreciate this." He says, the guy called him and says, "You know, you can disregard the email that I sent you. You know, I know you're just trying to get on your feet, and that's the only thing that took place. That eviction is part of your history, but not all evictions are the same. And I hope that you and your son do really well here." And he says, "Really, I really appreciate that. But how did you know I have a son? How did you know that story? Did you see me on social media?" And he says, "No, he said, "Did you see my Instagram or something?" Because he has a fairly large following. And he says, "No, I didn't. I saw you on some podcast with these two dads who were special needs dads as well. And they played a clip from the local news story in Houston. And I realized not all evictions are the same. You're just trying to get on your feet." And it literally impacted him either getting into that place or the manner in which he was doing so. And all we did is have a platform for that story to be shared. So for anybody that's listening, if you have half a story that you think might inspire an ant, and by that, I don't mean a sister of your parent, I mean an insect. It's an ant, a giant grain of sand, whoever, go ahead and share that story, because you never know how your existence can affect another person. And in the words of the great Muhammad Ali, service to others is the rent we pay for our room on earth. With that said, this is the section of the show where we ask the following question with context. Our ability to change the world and make it a better place is based on our willingness or ability to change ourselves. So with that said, if you would each give just one example of a thought or a belief that you once held deeply and believed strongly, but no longer believe to be true. And there is no wrong answer.
You know, that was a really good question. I went to sleep thinking about it, actually, because, well, to me, growing up and just kind of doing it all by myself, that's what I believe, you know. I can do it all by myself. And now that I'm older, that's changed quite a bit, because I still can do it all, but it's okay to ask for help.
There you go.
It's okay to feel vulnerable. It's okay to do it even crying. You know, that's okay. So now I'm okay knowing that, hey, it's okay to have that support system. I don't have to be strong all the time. It's okay to reach out for help, to seek help.
That's fantastic. Great.
It's also a form of strength to know that you need some help. Michael Jordan had a coach, right? Strong people need support. So I love that. That's one of the best answers we've had. That's great. So
yes,
up to challenge to you, Maria.
Yeah, I love that, Jessica. I guess for me, it's interesting because the neurodiversity movement has really touched me, impacted me, and I no longer think that typical, like, that word should not exist. You know, in this context, like there is no right way to be or typical way to be. That we're all just individuals and we should be celebrated for who we are and how we are. And I think for a lot of people, they've been failed by how the construct of the workplace or school or other social situations have been set up. And we as a community have to recognize that and start understanding that that there is not a right way or a typical way. That let's celebrate people for how they are and what they can contribute and who they are in our community.
That is the truth. Even when you see multiple children born of the same family with the same biological parents, and yet they're distinctly different people, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no typicality to it, I guess you say.
Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly.
That's brilliant. Well, our hour has come, and we're wrapping up now, right? It goes fast, doesn't it? Go fast, as like I shared with you. Because the conversation's compelling, and what you guys are doing and what you're sharing is so amazing. We're so grateful to have had this time with you for ourselves and for those who watch and listen to our podcast. So thank you both tremendously for being here, and looking forward to doing more work with you, and seeing you at a live event on October 20th. So looking forward to that as well. And as we wrap up the show, I end every episode with the same thing. I always say, empathy and love. And every day it seems to be more important than it was the day before. If you see somebody with a situation, you don't know what they're going through, have some empathy. You don't know what's going on in their lives. So don't be judgmental, have some empathy for folks. And if you look at the world through the lenses of love, the world's just a much better place. So it's needed more now than ever. So I want to thank you both as I throw it over to Shawn, and thank everybody for listening and tuning in today. Shawn.
Thank you both for being here. It's just been a fantastic experience. I want to thank everyone within the sound of my voice. And just remember that, we have more in common than we do otherwise. Let's try and be a little bit more childlike. Let's try and be more childlike and less childish. Questions are so much more powerful than statements. Remain curious about each other. Don't ever lose that. Everybody needs the same thing: to be seen, to be heard, to be loved, and know that they matter. And we'll see you again next time. We'll be back next week. And to everyone, we love you. Thank you so much.
We love you. Thank you, ladies. Awesome.
Thank you.